For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ellen Granberg, and I'm RIT's Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs. This is the 2021 Fram Applied Critical Thinking Signature Lecture. Welcome to all of you also who are watching this virtually. I'm going to talk for just a couple of minutes about the origin of this idea, critical thinking, and then turn the podium over to Jen Schneider. The development of critical thinking is one of those signature elements of education at most universities. It has a long history. It began as a concept that was put forth in the 19th and 20th century by pragmatist philosophers who were interested in the linkage between ideas and action. It started gaining traction in higher education about 40 years ago as a way of framing how you can understand the higher order skills that are needed to successfully navigate the workplace and complex modern industrial society. It's now seeped into the language of the workforce and is widely recognized and valued by employees around the world. So, for example, there was a recent World Economic Forum report that stated that the top skills valued by employers were problem solving and critical thinking. There's also an organization called ZipRecruiter that publishes a blog giving advice to job seekers. And it posts information on methods to hone your critical thinking skills before you go to that first interview. So critical thinking is very much in the lexicon of academics, of industry, of popular culture, but it's also a hard thing to define. Like, what exactly is it? And what is it at RIT? So critical thinking is a set of mental attitudes and habits that emphasize careful and conscious consideration of the information in front of us in light of what it is we want to accomplish. And over the years, there have been various frameworks for doing this, for thinking about your thinking, for bringing additional insight to the information that you're considering, and framing that in light of what it is that you want to, achieve. And what all of those frameworks, one of the things they have in common is that they can help produce insights that can lead to innovation, because you're considering things in a very open-minded and thoughtful way. Because of that element, I think RIT has the opportunity to place a special stamp on critical thinking, because we're a place that innovates. Innovation is in our DNA. Our philosophy of learning by doing, by creating, means that embedded within our educational experiences is the full arc of learning, from idea all the way through to invention. At RIT, this results in new solutions to old problems. It can result in a theatrical play or a song or a project that brings a new way of looking at a particular issue. And this is why our program is called Applied Critical Thinking, because we don't just finish critical thinking with an essay or a term paper, we finish it all the way through to something that is concrete and tangible. And that's what a lot of you have been involved in since you've been here. And so there's an industrial engineering faculty member here who calls this going from critical thinking to critical making. So I want to thank Alex Lobos for giving us that idea. So today's Fram Signature event is one of our opportunities to celebrate that unique approach to this important topic by hearing from an innovation leader whose work exemplifies these principles. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing today's signature speaker, Saunders College of Business alum, Sean Bratches, talk about the impact of critical thinking on his work. So thank you, Sean, so much for being here today. Following this lecture, I hope you will all join us for a reception in the Fireside Lounge. Now I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Jen Schneider, the current Eugene F. Fram Chair at RIT. Dr. Schneider has been the Fram Chair since 2014, and she is truly critical thinking in action. In the past year, Jen has applied her skills in environmental health and safety to supporting RIT's COVID mitigation plans. She's led the planning for our wastewater testing. She has consulted on questions regarding ventilation and air exchange and helped to clarify our masking standards. Each of these initiatives was critical thinking applied in ways that help position RIT as one of the most successful universities in the nation at controlling the virus and providing a safe environment for teaching and research. So the fact that we can have this event here today is in part due to the work of Dr. Jen Schneider. And so I'd now like to welcome her to the podium. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can see me over the podium. I'm working on being tall today. So thank you, Ellen, for the nice introduction. I would like to say I'm actually proud that I'm going to be associated with wastewater after this pandemic. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank our fabulous Fram advisory board members that guide this initiative. I could not do this alone, including this event. The signature events that have been going on the last couple of days, and this lecture in particular, are the most visible part of RIT's university-wide initiative and commitment to create thinkers that are more effective in any context, especially the intersection of technology, art, and design. And it really spans the RIT student experience. Application of critical thinking, as Dr. Granberg mentioned, really is about connecting, knowing, doing, and creating. Our global society has tremendous expectations. Simply knowing is no longer enough. Decision makers must think critically to strategize within complex, interconnected systems, continually adapt to rapidly evolving contexts, technological, aesthetic, social. They also must manifest new ideas, most individually and collectively. RIT aims to foster these global citizens who are problem solvers, innovators, and leaders for the greater good. So this Eugene H. Fram Chair was funded almost a decade ago by an alum that really wanted to honor his favorite professor, Dr. Eugene Fram. During his more than 5-decade career as a professor in the Saunders College of Business, Gene won many accolades and awards and was the J. Warren McClure research professor in marketing, as well as taking a turn as the chair of the marketing department. Today, both today and in our world, Gene is really known as a person that has inspired a legacy. That legacy is to get students to delve deeper, consider the foundations that their thinking rests upon, and to strive to continuously improve the world. Gene could not be with us, so his very great friends have been very gracious to be here to represent him. And would Roger and Vicki Brown please stand so we can recognize your support? Thank you. Now I am honored to hand this over to Dean Jackie Mosrell of the Saunders College of Business to introduce our speaker. Jackie.
Thank you, Jen, and welcome everyone. As Dean of Saunders College of Business, we are so excited to be partnering with the Eugene H. Fram Chair in Applied Critical Thinking on this event that has such special meaning to us. As Jen mentioned, it was established in honor of Saunders College professor Gene Fram, who was a longtime and impactful faculty member in Saunders College. So, has anyone ever heard of ESPN or Formula One? Can I hear some, woo! It is my pleasure to introduce our 2021 Fram Applied Critical Thinking Distinguished Professor, Sean Bratches. You got to hang on a minute. I've got an intro here. Sean has had an exciting career driving sales, marketing, branding, and strategy leadership for two of the world's most recognized brands. He built brands where athletes worldwide aspire to be on ESPN's top 10 plays and secured premium branding and record audiences for Formula One, the world's most renowned racing series. Sean is an executive with over 30 years of leadership, management, and operations experience at a multi-billion-dollar scale in the media, entertainment, and sports sectors. He is currently a senior advisor at McKinsey and Company, a senior advisor at Sixth Street Partners, and serves on the board of directors at Global Eagle Entertainment. He has also served on a variety of other boards, including Women in Cable and Television and the Ad Council. Sean is a two-time Vanguard winner, the industry's most prestigious recognition, and was inducted into the Broadcasting and Cable Hall of Fame in 2014. With ESPN, Sean oversaw the memorable This Is Sports Center and won an Emmy Award for It's Not Crazy, It's Sports campaign. He is also the originator and executive producer of the successful Netflix series Formula One: Drive to Survive. Sean likes to say he decided to take a chance with a small cable sports startup company after graduation, and then went on to spend close to 3 decades with that small startup, ESPN, rising to executive vice president of sales and marketing and serving on the ESPN board of directors. During Sean's tenure at ESPN, he helped shape ESPN's business, operational, and creative strategies across all company segments. His leadership fueled tremendous growth in ESPN's brand, revenues, and asset portfolio, encompassing Walt Disney Properties, ABC Family, Disney Channel, ESPN, the magazine. Hang on, let me just finish. Formula One, all right, we know he was at ESPN, but Formula One, he realized record earnings during his tenure. He truly created the brand for Formula One. But finally, we are especially proud of Sean because he is a graduate and alum of Saunders College of Business. So would you please help me in welcoming Mr. Sean Bratches back to RHE.
Thank you, Peggy. You're the best. Thank you very much. Whoa, it's a little, I think the mic works. Amazing pleasure to be back on campus. It's kind of a little bit of a trip down memory lane. You know, in some respects, I feel like I just got off SpaceX and I landed in some kind of Elon Musk world. I graduated, it was all brick, and now there's a lot of steel and glass and sharp corners, but it's amazingly impressive. But as I've walked around, you know, I've kind of thought about, you know, the friendships that I've made, you know, those that have been everlasting and those that were ephemeral, thinking about some of the people that, you know, what their lives turned out to be, that I was friendly with on campus but just haven't kept in touch with. But my college roommate, Todd Healy, and I still stay incredibly close touch, and, you know, weekly we play golf together. And one time during my career, I can't remember, you know, early, I was a freshman or sophomore, Todd's father saw that we were getting along famously, and he buttonholed us one day and said that when you're my age, and I think he was about 50 years old at the time, he said that if you can count on one hand and really say that you have 5 people that you can really call friends, you're doing great. And not only is Todd on that list, but a couple other guys that I went to RIT with. So I had a fantastic time here. Ellen Granberg was telling me yesterday at dinner that she recently bought a set of coasters in the student union that depicted RIT's growth from a footprint standpoint over the years. And based on what I've seen, they're going to have to start selling placemats because it's getting incredibly big. Dr. Fram, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here and perpetuate, your legacy and the creativity and efforts that you've put forth over the years. Amazing career. I understand that you're in California somewhere enjoying the fruits of your labor, so congratulations. So I'll tell you, I think that way is the quarter mile and the residential side of campus. But I think I started my career at ESPN in the Fish dorm as a freshman. I grew up without cable. Cable was this nascent, struggling business at the time. And, I come into this dorm and they've got Sports Center. They got ESPN. I was accustomed to watching the local news and getting 2 minutes of sports at some point at either 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. And here you had, Sports Center at 9 o'clock in the morning, at 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and sports information. It was like beer, Sports Center, ESPN. This is college. I was like, this is awesome. And so I candidly was introduced to ESPN at RIT, and in many respects really kind of beat the doors down at Formula One based on the affinity that and the consumption that I put forth when I was a student here at RIT, which met or exceeded some of my other academic pursuits in terms of time spent. But ESPN was an interesting business. It was launched about the same time as I was at RIT. A guy named Bill Rasmussen was the PA announcer for the Hartford Whalers. And he was let go, made redundant, and he was trying to figure out what his next lot in life was going to be. And he decided that he was going to launch a regional sports network to serve the state of Connecticut. So he goes to Bristol, Connecticut, which is absolutely in the middle of the state, nothing going on around it. And then he goes to UConn, and he buys the rights to all UConn football and basketball games. And he's going to base his Connecticut regional sports network on this UConn product. So at the time, the cable operators were having quarterly meetings, getting together and sharing stories and kind of figure out how to, maybe doing some critical thinking. And I had to look that up, by the way, when they asked me to speak at this conference. But they would get together on a quarterly basis, and Rasmussen wanted some time at one of these meetings. And the cable operators were basically serving areas that you couldn't get free over-the-air television. And that's how cable started. So a television station has a grade B contour, has a 50, 60 mile radius depending on buildings and topography. And there was a guy in Pennsylvania at a company called Service Electric. It was a company. They sold phonographs, hi-fi equipment, and a few other things. And this guy wanted to start selling televisions. And he put them in his store, but he couldn't get an over-the-air signal. So he went off to the top of this mountain that was between him and Philadelphia, put up an antenna, and then ran a cable to his store so he could show people what they would be buying. The next challenge he had was when they bought these, they couldn't get the signal because they were in his immediate area. So he actually started wiring the town. And cable operators at the time were being very successful, really selling ABC, CBS, and NBC to people that couldn't get it over the air. Fox was launched much later. And so at this meeting, they were relatively smitten with one another because the cable operators were looking for unique content that they could sell in the areas that could get television free over the air, which were typically more densely populated. and they wanted Rasmussen's content. And so during the meeting, he said, great, well, how do I get this to you? And one of the guys said, well, listen, there's this new technology out called satellite. And if you bounce it off a satellite, we can take it down at our Earth station and distribute it through our cable systems. So he went out and secured satellite capacity with RCA at the time. And then the guy said to him, one of the cable operators said, listen, if you deliver it by satellite, these satellites have a CONUS, a continental United States footprint. You might as well think about going national. So the next day, he took a flight out of Bradley Airfield, which is the Connecticut airport, and flew to Shawnee Mission, Kansas, which was where the NCA was located at the time. It's in Indianapolis today, and bought all the rights to college sport. And that was really the birth of ESPN and how it got started. And as cable operators started penetrating, new markets with new content like CNN and MTV, the business grew. And I would say that there was probably 3 seminal things that happened to ESPN that propelled its growth. The first was the 1984 Cable Act. And what was happening in the marketplace was that cable operators had to invest a significant amount of capital in their physical infrastructure, negotiating rates, pole rates with the telephone companies to get the wires to your house, amplifiers, in-home set-top boxes, satellite dishes, creating head ends. And there was nobody really overseeing the cable franchises, granting cable franchises to cable operators. The FCC was trying to get involved, states were trying to get involved, municipalities. And so what this Cable Act did was it actually granted municipalities the right to grant cable franchises, and it also deregulated rates. And it proscribed the cable operators from the municipalities from gouging the cable operators, because they were coming in and saying, well, if you want to put a cable system in, you have to build a hospital, or you have to build a firehouse, or you have to plant these trees. So it eliminated all of that, and it created rules for renewals so they could invest capital and grow. And so what happened immediately ensuing the 84 Cable Act was the industry, nascent as it was, invested $15 billion across the country in building these 35-channel cable systems with the knowledge that they could renew it and create business continuity and kind of move forward. So that was really important, from a growth standpoint, because it increased the amount of homes that were passed for cable. The second seminal event was right when I joined ESPN, we acquired the NFL rights. And ESPN was launched on September 7th, 1979 at 6 o'clock with an hour sports center. And it went in, the first event that ever aired on ESPN was a slow-pitch softball game between the Milwaukee Schlitzes and the Kentucky Bourbons. I kid you not. And there was a lot of interesting content that surrounded it. And to get people, from a mindset standpoint, to get people to move from free over-the-air television with rabbit ears or an antenna, depending on where you were relative to the signal, you needed strong content. So it was a huge risk as it related to ESPN and the invested capital. And it was also, and we went to the cable operators and asked them to offset that, and they did. And the growth actually hockey sticked for not only ESPN, but for all networks in this cable bundle. So then the third, and I would say probably most seminal event, was in 1992, DirecTV launched, and in 1995, Dish Network launched. And these platforms were competitors, immediate competitors to every cable system in the United States because they were national. Heretofore, the cable operators operated de facto monopolies, so when you went in to negotiate service fees and things like that, they could tell you no, or they could dictate price, or if you couldn't agree, they would drop you, and you lost your voice in the marketplace. So instantaneously, the cable operators were overbuilt with these 500-channel systems, 1,000-channel systems, and their livelihood, because this is well before broadband, And so their livelihood was being threatened. So the cable operators, in turn, invested hundreds of billions of dollars of private equity capital into building their facilities or upgrading their facilities. And again, this was with no understanding that, as we sit here today, broadband is the biggest benefactor of that investment in what heretofore was thought of as an investment in video. And so, but what that meant for ESPN was that we could actually create, we had competition, so we were now, I wouldn't say dictating, in case there's any attorneys in the room, but we were we had a stronger place at the table in terms of a negotiating standpoint, because people at that time would readily move from cable to satellite or satellite to cable. So those were the three, I would say, kind of biggest influencers and drivers of ESPN. But what I thought I would do, I'm not going to talk about ESPN. I thought I'd spend some time talking about Formula One and my most recent career there, albeit I spent close to 3 decades at ESPN, and I'll call it 4 years at Formula One, but I think it's probably most relevant because it's most recent. So how are we doing? Good? All right. So after close to 3 decades at ESPN, I was about mid-2016, I got a call from Liberty Media, who was contemplating buying Formula One. And it's actually interesting in the world of sport, because there really is not another category of sport where you can actually buy a league. You can't buy the NFL, you could buy a team. NBA, you can buy a team. You can't buy the Bundesliga or the Premier League. But in terms of motorsports, Penske just bought IndyCar. The France family owns NASCAR. MotoGP is owned by Dorna, and now Formula One is owned by Liberty Media. And Liberty acquired Formula One for 3 primary reasons. One, it had a great global brand, had over 500 million fans, and had a decent balance sheet. Second, the belief that technology is disintermediating the way consumers ingest television content. And the belief is that sports is the last bastion of content that on a predictable basis can aggregate large audiences that can be monetized. And the third reason was the belief that at best case, the sport was undermanaged, and at worst case, and it was mismanaged, and probably a little of both. So I get a call, and it was a little bit of a bait and switch, I found out, because it asked me to go over and run the business of Formula One. But what I found was that when I got there was no business. This was run out of the house of a guy named Bernie Ecclestone, who was the Formula One, supremo for a number of years. Actually, I think became the 4th richest man in the UK based on it, but he ran it out of his house in London. It was a very nice house, but he ran it out of his house, and he had a handful of attorneys and a handful of accountants. And it's an interesting sport, because unlike, I think, most sports that we know, where you have 20 or 30 billionaire owners, and they appoint a CEO, a commissioner, or a president to actually run the sport. Formula One is the byproduct of a tri-party agreement between the FIA, which oversees the rules and regulations for Formula One, where I toiled, which has the commercial rights and puts on the show, and then the 10 teams. And it was really a kind of this cauldron of self-interest, and really the way it was set up. Everyone was skeptical of one another. No one worked, people weren't working together, kind of in a productive way. Everybody was doing things for their own interest as opposed to the interest of the sport. And so I get to London in late 2016. Liberty closes on the deal, early 2017. And I realized pretty quickly that, what I'm about to embark on is a little bit more interesting than I initially imagined, because there was no business there. There was no head of marketing, there's no head of sponsorship, media rights, there's no head of strategy, there's no head of hospitality, there's no head of events, no head of research and analytics. So wasn't going to walk around Bernie's house, and you should read this book called I'm No Angel, and it's, the lore is, and I think it's factual, that, all his conference rooms in his house were bugged, and it was just, there wasn't an opportunity for me to work there. So I'm going between coffee shop and coffee shop, picking up broadband, kind of thinking what I'm going to do, and I decided that, where do you want to take, if you need to take a brand somewhere, what is like the first thing that you need to understand? And I came to the conclusion that I need to understand how fans perceived the brand, how fans perceived Formula One. What were the emotive elements that drove them to, align themselves behind this sport? And not only did Formula One not have a research department, they had no research. So I walked down to Wyden and Kennedy's office in Shoreditch, and Wyden and Kennedy was our agency of record at ESPN. Literally walked in and hired them on the spot, and along with an entity called Flamingo, we went off on creating a global brand study to answer the question. And while most sports, whether the Bundesliga operates in Germany, the Premiership in England, the NBA in the United States, Formula One is truly a global sport. Right? It's the Olympics, it's World Cup, and Formula One. The difference is Formula One races every year in 21 different countries across 4 continents, where the World Cup and the Olympics participate once every 4 years in one country. So it's a truly global sport. So I needed the perspective and input, from around the world. And so went to these 4 continents. We interviewed 10 individuals for 7 hours each on each continent over 2 days. We did 6 focus groups comprising 10 people each on each continent, one of avid F1 fans, casual F1 fans, former F1 fans, motorsport fans, spectacle fans, etc. We did a semiotic analysis of Formula One iconography going back 15 years, over television coverage, advertisements, kind of sponsor brands, and what were the elements that drove it. And we came back with reams and reams of data about Formula One, and we synthesized this all down to a very simple brand book, and which contains our mission statement, which is, I should probably go grab the clicker now here, to unleash the greatest racing spectacle on the planet. And the 3 key words are unleash, racing, and spectacle, which I'll get into in a second. And then we came up with 5 North Stars that are kind of central to running the sport even to this day. And they are what we look to, what defined the activity. It really influenced how I organized and hired my senior staff, put together an organizational structure, and really created the organization. And those are revel in the racing, breaking borders, putting the spectacular back into the spectacle, taste the oil, and feel the blood boil. And hang on a second, I think I got to be looking at this thing. So, revel in the racing was all about, and this is kind of a little bit of common sense, but it's like people tune into Formula One to see racing, livery to livery racing, overtaking. And when I got to Formula One, there wasn't even a website. I mean, it was they had the URL or whatever it is, and they had a statement up there, a pithy statement about what Formula One was all about, with the ultimate, and they hyphen, speed. And it's not about speed. That's inherent in racing, or in motorsport. But what people are looking for is cars competing against one another. And the challenge that Formula One had is that each of the 10 teams, and the essence of the word formula is that the teams are each given a formula that they can develop their cars within the boundaries of that. So all the cars are different in terms of interpretation, or what they are elevating within that formula to kind of to put forth. So unlike NASCAR, where every car is the exact same and it's a driver's championship, Formula One is very different, and it was impossible to overtake someone because each team designed their cars to go forward, and the dirty air that's coming out of the back of the cars was inhibiting trailing cars from keeping downforce so they could actually pass the cars on a going forward basis. The television broadcast, we totally revitalized that. We lowered the camera angles, because the lower the camera angles, the more essence of speed that you get as a viewer. We put 25 spotters around each Grand Prix to call in to broadcast race control, to identify when there was an overtake about to take place. So we did a lot of things to actually encourage wheel-to-wheel racing, and so that's the first one. The second is breaking borders, and this was all about the notion that fans perceived Formula One to be impenetrably exclusive. It was, you could see it on television. The races took place an hour outside of city centers because the circuits are 5-6 miles long. The ticket prices were expensive. When you went to a Formula One Grand Prix, you could sit in the grandstands. You couldn't get into the pit. You couldn't get onto the grid. You couldn't get into anything. You couldn't see anything. So my view on this was that I think exclusivity was inherent in the brand DNA of Formula One, and I wanted to retain a degree of exclusivity, but I also wanted to create some seams in this impenetrable cloak where fans could actually touch the brand. So, really built and revised the digital touch points from betting to fantasy to podcast to, it looked like a true media company. Did live car runs in city centers around the world to actually bring the sounds and the things that move people's viscery to the fans, as opposed to having them be behind this cloak. And we raced in, we did this in Shanghai, in London, Chicago, Miami, Marseille, London, Milan. We created a series called Drive to Survive on Netflix. So we did a lot of things to get people and expose them to the brand. The next is putting the spectacular back into the spectacle. When you go to a Formula One Grand Prix, you're going for 3 days, spending 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Unlike if you go to see the Knicks and the Bulls play, you go for 2 or 3 hours and you go home. And it really wasn't being promoted properly. So when people got to town, they didn't know that there was a Grand Prix in town. So we started kitting out train stations, bus stations, taking out ads, letting people know that there was pomp and circus, kind of going around that, creating fan villages at the spectacles, creating on-track exhibitions outside of free practice 1, 2, 3, qualifying and the race, bringing in things like the Porsche Racing Series, the Ferrari Cup, creating programs like Hot Laps where the OEMs, the brands in the sport could actually take people out, sponsors, dignitaries, friends out in their cars in a McLaren, on a Formula One track during a race weekend. The fourth that came out of this research was feel the blood boil, and this was all about telling the human stories about the athletes, these heroes, these individuals that are every single second of these Grand Prix they're on the precipice of greatness or peril, and being emotive and letting people know, taking their helmets off, and creating affinities through the drivers because they are the true benefactors of the sport. And the last is taste the oil. And when you get down to brass tacks, in many respects, Formula One at its heart is an engineering platform. when you look at, NASCAR, what I said, it's more of a driver's championship. Formula One is 1/3 the car, 1/3 the engine, and 1/3 the driver. And the innovations that have come out of Formula One over the years are extraordinary. Seatbelts, rear view mirrors, traction control, paddle shifting, carbon fiber. And so, the teams that are in the sports, most of them are in the automotive business, and most of them are actually in the business because they're trying to develop technologies that they can develop in Formula One and impute into the tens of thousands of cars that they sell consumers every day. So this was an opportunity to start telling the engineering stories behind Formula One. I'll give you an example. Formula One cars you're not allowed to refuel a Formula One car after the race starts. And they don't give you anywhere near as much fuel as you need to finish the race. And it's interesting because the Formula One has has the most efficient engine from input to power that exists on the planet. But because there was no marketing group at Formula One when it was developed, because there was no communications group, the story is laid fallow. And so between 30 and 45% of the energy that propels these cars around the track for 2 hours, it speeds up to 230 miles an hour, comes from reharvested brake and exhaust heat that the drivers and the teams have to delicately manage. And the stories go on and on about in terms of what the engineering feats in the sport. So we I guess one of the outputs was that the more we give fans what they want, the more we get what we want, from a Formula One perspective. And our greatest days are in front of us. And when I left the company, we had record earnings, record attendance at Grand Prix, record consumption, television viewing, and it's, I think it's poised to be a really big sport. Not only in Europe, which the research indicated that they were underserving the European and the South American audiences, which were their core, and they were not paying attention to the American and Asian audiences, which are their future. So, I think we were looking to kind of better serve the avid Formula One fan, and then pay a lot of attention to casual fans and bring new people into the funnels through different touch points and telling this extraordinary story. When I got to Formula One, there was only 3 teams since 2014 that had won a Grand Prix. And if you look at the Premier League, the bottom 6 teams from the 14-15 season had beat or tied the top six Premier League teams 29% of the time. Now, if you were Swansea, you probably weren't coming into the season thinking you were going to win the Premier League, but at least if you went to a game against Man City or the Arsenal or Chelsea, I have to put Arsenal on that list now, although because I'm a fan, but I'm not sure now they're in that list. But you knew you could win that game. In Formula One, it wasn't that way. And so I think, we've actually kind of started to instill a cost cap and other technical parameters that are going to make the sport much more competitive. So the Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, which are the 3 teams that won all those Grand Prix since 2014 to when I got there and still win the majority of them, they spend between $500 and $600 million a year on their cars. The rest of the grid spends between 80 and 150 million. And the engineers will tell you that are in the sport that for every $100 million that you invest in your cars above 200, you're buying 1/10 of a second per lap advantage. So Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull were spending $400 million more than their competition for 4/10 of a second per lap advantage, and they were winning every Grand Prix. So, it's an interesting sport to manage because unlike I think any other sport that I know, the teams are consumer-facing brands. You know, it's not the Eagles and the Giants, it's not Chelsea and Man U. This is Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, Renault, AlphaTauri, which, if for those you don't know, is a European fashion brand. Ferrari's only marketing budget is Formula One. It's win Sunday, sell Monday. Red Bull, 65% of Red Bull's gross impressions, their gross advertising impressions, come through their Formula One investment. You know, they do a lot of things in terms of flying, you know, airplanes through pylons on lakes and having guys jumping out of, you know, spaceships and things like with parachutes. But, you know, from a mass appeal standpoint, it's huge. And then you've got, you know, Mercedes and McLaren and Renault, and they're all taking, you know, what they learn from the suspension systems, material science, aerodynamics, engine tech, and they're imputing these into their road cars. So as you know, you try to manage a sport in the linear sense, you can actually, you know, make a decision. Here, you know, you've got all these disparate objectives, where an objective of, you know, someone that owns an NBA team or an NFL team or a Premier League team is really, you know, I would say value appreciation of the asset, and then being the person, you know, that owns the club. At Formula One, it's entirely different. You know, they're all using Formula One not only to win Grand Prix, but to win Grand Prix for a commercial purpose. So trying to kind of aggregate consensus, whether, you know, like when I did this Netflix series, neither Ferrari nor Mercedes participated in year one. Mercedes thought they had a deal with Amazon to do a documentary just on their team, and Ferrari was just, you know, skeptical and wanted to wait. Year two, they were both in. I created an esports league, and I got everybody in but Ferrari. I think they were concerned about not winning, but year two, they were in, and they did quite fine. So it was a fascinating opportunity, both at ESPN and at Formula One. Both were fraught with challenges. I think ESPN, when I joined it, was looking more like a startup. You know, we didn't call things startups back in the day, but I think that's what we would have called it. And Formula One was somewhere between a startup and a business turnaround, even though it was a 67-year-old asset when I arrived. So why don't I pause there, and I think we'll turn it over and ask some questions. And Jen or Jackie, I'm not sure how you want to facilitate this. I think there's some microphones here.
Hi. We have runners on either side. If you would have a question, please raise your hand, and one of the runners will bring a microphone over to you to bring any questions. If you could speak loudly and clearly into the microphone, we could all hear your question.
Hey, as a Brazilian fan, I've always seen Formula One everywhere, in the TVs and everything, but as I also like NBA and NFL, that was a big problem that I had to watch it over the TV or something. So as you talked about breaking the borders, I would like to know your opinion on what a lot of sports are doing now on going to the internet to try and catch more audiences online, like F1 TV or the NFL Game Pass.
Sure. Yeah, I think, you know, listen, I mean, digital is a big play. And, you know, I've got 1,000 stories I could tell you, but, you know, when I got this call in mid-2016 from Liberty, I started following the Formula One teams and the drivers on their social feeds. And one thing that I noticed was they weren't posting a lot of content. And in March of 2017, prior to that season starting, I had lunch with Lewis Hamilton, who is the rock star of the sport. He's won the championship with Mercedes the last couple of years. And I asked him, I said, you know, why don't you post, you know, your helmet, your car, you know, on your social feeds? And he basically put down a stack of cease and desist orders that Bernie Eccleston had sent him because he wanted to get paid for every post. And, you know, that was the thinking. And so in the ensuing weeks, I actually constructed social media guidelines and issued them to the drivers, to the teams, to the sponsors, to the promoters. And for 3 years running, we were actually, once we got to parity with the other leagues, we were the fastest growing platform, sport in terms of social media. But I think that you need to use social media for two reasons. One is there's an economic benefit, clearly, but I think the most substantive opportunity is to drive avidity and create fans. And there's probably nobody that does this as well as the NBA. They're very much on the front of their feet with social media, and it's carrying through. And while you have typically a league like the NBA, let's use them as an example, their two primary revenue streams are media rights, which are television revenue, and sponsorship. And if you can use social media to drive an audience, higher audiences, where you increase your media rights and or sponsorship by 5%, you're much better than being very successful, monetizing your digital, because it'll come nowhere near what the opportunity is on those sides. So listen, I think it's there's different strategies. I think the NFL tries to put their content, much more behind a wall, where, other leagues are, I think, kind of looking out and trying to reach new audiences in different ways. And they both have, both strategies have pros and cons to them. But one of the things, you talked about Brazil, it's we had a driver, Massey, who retired, and to show you the implication of personalities and drivers, our ratings went down 22% in the year after he retired. The same thing happened in Spain when Alonso stopped really competing. I think the ratings went down like 80%. So it's really important for Formula One, and it's something that we're trying to influence, because it's a team responsibility, not a Formula One responsibility, is to have an American driver, have a Chinese driver, because if you can do that, it really it creates a halo on your other efforts in terms of marketing and how you position yourself. Did that answer your question?
Hi.
Hi.
I work in a unit at RIT called Venture Creations, where we help startups that come out of affiliated RIT properties. And some of those companies are in clean tech. And for those of us who are a fan of Formula One, we love the sound. I think the sound of the engines are just incredible and a big part of the spectacle. How does the sport think about electrification and other types of ways to drive the engines?
Yeah, it's interesting. I will tell you, going to Formula One, I was not a petrolhead. I'd actually never been to a Formula One Grand Prix. I'd probably been to more sporting events than anybody in a 1,000-mile radius of us right now, but we didn't carry it. And so, I was busy going to events that ESPN carried. So it was a big learning experience, and the reason they brought me in was, I think, more to Americanize Formula One in terms of, the entertainment aspect, and turn it and evolve it from a motorsport company to a global media and entertainment brand. And what I kept hearing when I got there was, it's the sound. They're not. The engines are quiet. They don't make as much noise as they used to. And I got to my first Grand Prix in Melbourne in 2017, and I was like, putting my fillings back in my teeth. It was and I actually have heard the old cars, which are heart attack frightening. But I think one of the things that Formula One has always been in the vanguard of innovation, and that includes engine technology. And when we went from a naturally aspirated engine to turbo to the current hybrid, I think we were always in the vanguard. And in many respects, the structure of Formula One, having the OEMs in the sport, like Ferrari, like Renault, like Aston Martin, like Alfa Romeo, they are looking forward. And the next material engine change is slated for 2025. Ross Brawn, who is the technical director at Formula One, has posited publicly about hydrogen. But I think you're dancing on the head of a pin in terms of full electrification, because Formula E is turning out to be, I would say it's more of they're missing that visceral aspect that people go into, either tune into or attend from a sporting event standpoint. So I think Formula One is going to have to be very conscientious of some existential things that are going on in the marketplace as it relates to sustainability, the environment, and where the OEMs are going from a car standpoint, from a technology standpoint. So I don't know the exact answer where it's going, but I can tell you that Formula One will be in the vanguard of innovation coming out of the next engine renewal cycle, which is in 2025, and because they have historically, and I think that's their hallmark. You're welcome.
Hi, Sean. Thank you for the lovely talk. So just a thought on Formula E. We have a class called Entrepreneurial Mindset where we do customer discovery and try to understand what the customer want. So regarding Formula E as well, did you have like a customer discovery point of view where you were going to all the different continents and talking, having focus groups regarding renewable energy racing?
I think, listen, Formula E has probably 7 years left. I have an exclusive, electronic platform deal with the FIA. So they'll be the pure electrification series in the marketplace through that period of time. We have a number of conversations about electrification and what that means as it relates to the participants in the sport, not only from a OEM standpoint but from a fan standpoint. And we like our position right now, and I think that there's as the sign said or does say, we think our greatest days are ahead of us, and it continues to evolve. And I don't think anybody can tell you what Formula One is going to be like in 4 years or even next year, because that's the hallmark of the sport. Did I answer your question?
Yep, it did. Another follow-up question was, what is the current revenue model of Formula One as a media company? Like, what are the revenue sources? Is it over the like Formula One TV or the sales from the events, or what would be the revenue?
Repeat the question. I just want to make sure I answer it.
What would be the revenue model of Formula One as a media company? Like, what is the current revenue model?
What is what?
What is the revenue?
What's the current revenue model?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Sorry, with the mask.
That's a subject dear to my heart. I can't believe I didn't understand that. I apologize. So the current revenue model, there are 3 revenue inputs in Formula One. You have media rights, which is the sale of television rights to Formula One on a global basis. Sponsorship, like Pirelli, Rolex, DHL, Aramco. And then you have race promotion fees, which are fees that countries around the world pay Formula One to come and race. And those are really the 3 revenue streams that were evident when I was there. The opportunities kind of going forward are hospitality, which Formula One has the highest end hospitality in sport called Paddock Club. Digital, really starting to generate, and I used to tell my staff, if you don't laugh, you'd cry. So when I got there, we actually had to build the Formula One website. And the first ad that ever was sold, the display ad that was ever sold on Formula1.com was in the fall, November of 2018. 15 years behind everybody else, or 20 years behind everybody else. But it was really kind of this legacy asset. And then I think, these cars, each of the Formula One cars have over 200 sensors on them, and they kick out 1,500 points of data every second of every Grand Prix. And the RF signals are incapable of actually getting all that data off the cars in real time. And we put hard drives in that we take out of every car on the backside, which I think true 5G in the future can probably, LiDAR, something like that can probably help. But the data that's coming out of those, and with the kind of the opportunities in betting, which before I got there, you could bet on Formula. There really wasn't a lot of betting. It's who wins, who gets the pole, who's going to crash first, because they didn't license the data. So we had this cloud of data that was sitting above us, just laying fallow, waiting to be exploited. And so I licensed the data to a betting company. And then the data also, I brought in AWS as a sponsor, and they actually activated that data and are creating consumer-facing user experiences in our broadcast that tell stories that could not have been told before.
Time for two more questions. One,
We got the RIT lacrosse team engaged in the game.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, guys, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
You were talking about your marketing and structural improvements of both companies. What were some supply chain or logistic improvements that you had between both companies?
Supply chain challenges from a marketing standpoint?
Yeah.
I'm going to unpack that for me a little bit more. I want to make sure I understand the question.
So with ESPN and F1, you were talking about how the marketing and structural, there were improvements between both that you created and helped implement. So I was wondering what logistics and supply chain, I guess, struggles you had and occurred, but also what strategies you took to improve both aspects.
Yeah, I think, from a strategic standpoint, I think, you need to kind of continue to evolve and create your message to engage fans, right? And because, and you want to be, you want to pick up on current kind of social themes, themes that are in the sport. So at sports, at ESPN, we would do topicals every single day. And, coming out of what was going on, if the Yankees were playing the Red Sox, after every game in that series, we'd actually create topical promos that we would promote out across our platforms. And then at the same time, to kind of promote like the broader, like the themes, like Sports Center, we would create campaigns. And you look at a campaign like This Is Sports Center, which I assume everybody's seen in one carnation or the other. We did that in 1994, and we thought that was going to be a campaign that we would run for 3 or 4 months. The three underpinning elements of that was, one, we wanted to position Bristol, Connecticut as the center of the sports fans' universe. We wanted to advance the notion that we took sports very seriously, but we didn't take ourselves seriously. And we wanted to position ESPN not as a big conglomerate talking to a fan, but a big fan talking to another fan. And that was like 28 years ago. I mean, it just, some things kind of have a sustained, element, and then, you just ride that horse until, it's not relevant anymore. But, so I think that, I think the key things is to, know where you want to go, have a strategic vision and plan, make sure that you don't kind of stray from that. Know what your fans thinking, know where your sport's going, and leverage the changes in the sport to continue to drive forward and grow. Because listen, any business that you're all in or you all will be in is all about growth. I mean, you have to be better tomorrow than you were today, and taking a brand is a very valuable element, and in some respects it's the most valuable non-person element component you'll have in a company, and it's like a diamond. I mean, a rough diamond, you need to get up every morning and you need to polish that diamond, and if you do that and you're smart about it and you know your customer and you have a vision and you're exploiting new technologies and new markets, you're going to succeed.
we have time for one last question. Right there to your left.
Did you foresee Drive to Survive having such a large effect as it has had in new viewership?
I wish I could say yes. I was in a hurry when I was at Formula One, right? It was this amazing sport that just had no commercial, no brand attention to it. And there was so much sitting there, and there was so much opportunity that I was doing 1,000 things. And so, the outgrowth of this research that I talked about, being a global brand and having a fan base that's telling you that they want to see more, that there's parts of the sports that they're champing at the bit to kind of ingest, put their arms around. And I had a former business colleague at ESPN that was at Netflix. And this is like 5 years ago, and Netflix was, kind of on the pursuit of going global to create growth because the United States was maturing. And I called Eric Barmack and I said, Eric, listen, I got this research, I'm at Formula One, I got this tiger by the tail, it's just waiting to be unleashed. You're global, we're global. And I took him through some of the research, and he got it right away, and we cut a deal. And it was basically a series of they had all the leverage. So it was basically a series of one-year deals, and produced the first season, and this thing just took off. And before we had a deal for year 2, they had sent their crews to preseason testing in Barcelona, the Melbourne, China, and Bahrain Grand Prix to shoot. So I knew we had some leverage, even though we didn't have the numbers. So the answer is no, but it seemed like a really good idea. And it continues to perform not only for Formula One, but for Netflix as well. And it's bringing in new audiences, diverse audiences, young, old, male, female. And it's water cooler talk. So I heard that was the last question. I just want to say thank you very much for having me. Enjoyed being here, and good luck to all of you, and thank you again. I'm going to take my hat.
A big thank you to Sean. Thank you for the insightful stories, the Q&A. The event is not over. I take this opportunity to thank the benefactors, Dr. Eugene Fram, Provost Gramberg, Dean Mosrell, Dr. Jen Schneider for putting the event together, and all the attendees. Please proceed. There is a reception at the Fireside Lounge where we can keep the conversation going and meet Sean Bratches for any further questions that you might have. Thank you all.
Thank you.